The 2014-15 Kentucky Wildcats will go down in history as the most recent team to seriously challenge the 1975-76 Indiana Hoosiers record as the last unbeaten college basketball team. But what is the story behind this incredible team, and how did they fall just short of glory in the most devastating way possible? This is the story of the 2014-15 Kentucky Wildcats. Before we look at the incredible 38-1 season that Kentucky had, let's look at how the Wildcats were able to create a platoon substitution roster with 9 future NBA players and talent oozing from their starting lineup all the way to the end of their bench. Our story starts off in despair, as the season prior, Kentucky was filled with ups and downs throughout the regular season, but they came together and made a run in March Madness, appearing in the national championship game as an 8 seed. Unfortunately for the Wildcats, they were beaten by Shabazz Napier and the UConn Huskies, and they would fall one game short of lifting up the national championship. After that loss, many players had the chance to leave Lexington in favor of playing in the NBA the next season. However, players like the Harrison twins, Willie Cauley-Stein, Dakari Johnson, Marcus Lee, and Alex Poythress all decided to run it back for the 2014 season with Kentucky. The Wildcats would be stacked with just those names returning, but Kentucky also added 4 of the top 25 players in the nation to their team, as Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, Trey Lyles, and Tyler Ulis were all named to the McDonald's All-American team. Combine all that recruiting talent with the talent that Kentucky already had returning from the season prior, and a special season was brewing in Lexington for head coach John Calipari and the Wildcats, who would claim 52 of the 65 first-place votes in the preseason poll as the 2014-15 regular season was gearing up to start.
Starting off with the non-conference games, Kentucky had a pretty strong schedule, playing 4 top 25 teams: Kansas, Texas, Louisville, and North Carolina, with 3 of the 4 teams being in the top 6 rankings in the country. First, we're taking a look at the Kansas game. Going in, Kansas was the number 5 ranked team in the country, and it was the 3rd game of the season for each team on a neutral court, and the stage was set so this would be a well-balanced and entertaining game. However, this was just not the case, as Kentucky dominated and physically bullied Kansas all night long. Kentucky would eventually cruise to a 71-40 win with a very well-balanced attack, with more than 7 players scoring more than 5 points, but no player scoring more than 12 points. Next up, Kentucky squared off against the number 21 North Carolina Tar Heels. This game was also set to be a close one. Coming into this game, Kentucky was on a roll, winning 10 in a row. But before this game, Kentucky had lost one of their starters, Alex Poythress, to a season-ending knee injury, while North Carolina was 6-2, defeating multiple ranked teams. Kentucky won the game, and Devin Booker led the way by hitting 5 threes and a team-high 15 points, as well as Willie Cauley-Stein having 15 points. They never trailed and once had a lead of 19 points. Finally, the Wildcats matched up against number 4 Louisville, in a game where neither team had lost to this point, with Kentucky winning 12 in a row and Louisville 11 in a row. The game being at Louisville might have had some people favoring the matchup. The game was a dogfight, with neither team shooting particularly well from the field, and many players on both teams in foul trouble. However, it was freshman Tyler Ulis who came up big for the Kentucky Wildcats, as he received an injury earlier in the game, but managed to step up and hit 12 key points in the second half to ultimately prevail Kentucky to a 58-50 win on the road, to complete a perfect non-conference season. All in all, Kentucky finished with a perfect non-conference record, beating 4 ranked teams and battled plenty of adversity of either his player getting hurt or overcoming unseen obstacles. It was also a very dominant run, with Kentucky winning their non-conference games by an average of over 27 points a game.
Schedule on January 6th at home against Ole Miss. After looking dominant in November and December, the Cats were taken to the wire by the Rebels. UK needed overtime to outlast Ole Miss 89-86. Unfazed by trailing Kentucky 12-0 and 18-5, Ole Miss's Emmanuel Moody helped the Rebels regroup to mount runs of 10-0 and 7-0 to get within 23-22 before eventually taking a 30-26 lead with 7 minutes and 1 second left in the half. Rebels led 38-36 at the break behind 50% shooting before Kentucky opened the second half with a spurt that put them up by as many as 6 before Mississippi battled back. Wildcats guard Aaron Henderson throttled the Rebels' quest by scoring 26 points, including 2 big free throws with 1 minute and 29 seconds remaining in overtime to put Kentucky ahead to stay. After the scare Ole Miss put into Kentucky, they rebounded on January 10th at Texas A&M behind Booker's 18 points to a 70-64 victory in double overtime. On January 24th, Kentucky traveled to Columbia to beat South Carolina 58-43. In the season prior, Kentucky lost 72-67 on the same floor only weeks before their run to the national championship game. However, the Wildcats turned up the defense to make sure that this didn't happen again. After South Carolina's Sedarius Thornwell hit a three-pointer for a 24-23 South Carolina lead with 4 minutes and 31 seconds that left the fans in a frenzy. Elias started the comeback for Kentucky with a steal and a basket for Booker, made 2 foul shots and a dunk, and the Wildcats were on their way. Booker scored 7 points in Kentucky's 14-0 run that spanned both halves, closing the surge with a three-pointer that put the Wildcats ahead 37-24 with 18 minutes and 28 seconds remaining. On January 29th, the Wildcats again traveled to Columbia, this time to defeat Missouri 69-53. On February 3rd, Kentucky hosted Georgia at Rupp Arena, defeating the Bulldogs 68-58. The Bulldogs were without leading scorer and rebounder Marcus Thornton, who was out due to a concussion. Andrew Harrison scored 23 points and combined with Towns for key baskets down the stretch that helped Kentucky pull away. On February 17th, Kentucky traveled to Knoxville to face arch rival Tennessee. Booker had 18 points and 7 rebounds as Kentucky picked up its defense in the second half and pulled away for a 66-48 victory over the Volunteers. The victory set a new record for the historic program as it became 26-0 for the first time.
The Kentucky Wildcats entered NCAA tournament as the #1 overall seed in the Midwest region with a perfect regular season record of 0-0, and then an SEC tournament win of 3 games, extending the perfect record to 34-0. On Selection Sunday, Kentucky found out that they were playing in Millville, but not know who they were playing quite yet. Kentucky was set to play the winner of a play-in game to Hampton and Manhattan. Hampton ended up being ahead. Nobody surprised, the 1-seed Kentucky played good in the 16-seed Hampton. The final score was 79-56, and now NBA superstar Towns had 21 points to lead the Wildcats over Hampton that game. Hampton. Kentucky was set to play the winner of the 8th seed and the 9th, Cincinnati and Purdue. Cincinnati ended up winning that game and preventing an upset in overtime. Kentucky did not shoot great by losing this game with a field goal percentage of 37%. Although this is pretty bad, it was better than Cincinnati, who shot 32%. Kentucky was able to match the physicality of Cincinnati and ultimately beat them 64-51. After defeating Cincinnati, Kentucky was set to play the winner of the 4th seed and 5th seed, which was Maryland and Virginia. West Virginia defeated Maryland to continue on to play Kentucky. West Virginia was so confident that they could beat, so much so that one of the West Virginia's guards started talking trash, saying they were going to win and give them their first loss. This trash talk raised a lot of tension between the two teams before the game. Apparently the trash talk said the opposite and fueled the Wildcats as they jumped out to an early 18-2 lead. West Virginia managed to shoot worse than any other Kentucky opponent with a field goal percentage of 24.1%. Kentucky shot much better than last game with a field goal of 6.9%. This obviously led to a brutal beatdown, the final score of 78-59, tying the largest margin of victory ever in the regional semifinal with a margin of 30. Three-seeded Notre Dame beat Wichita State to reach the regional final against Kentucky. This game was back and forth all game and came down to the wire. Karl Anthony Towns led the Wildcats to start a comeback in the second half. The Wildcats were down 2 points with just 6 seconds left. The Wildcats were able to tie the game and then drove at the basket again and got fouled. After a timeout by Notre Dame to try and isolate the shooter, Andrew Harrison sunk both free throws to get the 2-point advantage. After inbounding the ball, Notre Dame was unable to score as they missed a contested 3. This was the highest rating college basketball game on TV of all.
Clock is ticking. 3 it goes to 2 to 1. Grant gets the shot up. Oh, it just misses. Kentucky has won.
Going into their Final Four matchup with the Wisconsin Badgers, the Kentucky Wildcats were 38-0, on the verge of a perfect season and 2 wins away of winning the school's 9th national championship. Going into the game against Wisconsin, nearly everyone thought of Kentucky as an unbeatable opponent due to the raw talent of the players and the great coaching system that John Calipari implemented. But all of this didn't shake Wisconsin's confidence. Led by Frank Kaminsky, who finished with a game-high 20 points and 11 rebounds, the Badgers jumped out to a 23-14 lead midway through the first half. But Kentucky stormed back to tie the game at half. And with 16 seconds left in the fourth quarter, the Badgers held a 66-63 lead, so close to one of the biggest upsets in college basketball history. Before Wisconsin could celebrate, though, they had to close it out, and the Wildcats weren't going down without a fight. Karl Anthony Towns stepped up to the free throw line and had an opportunity to cut Wisconsin's lead to 1 point, but he missed the second free throw, and at the other end, Bronson Koenig made both of his free throws to put the game away. After a back-and-forth game, Wisconsin did it. They beat the unbeaten team, and for the first time all season, Kentucky's locker room was the losing one. After the game, John Calipari said, "We're a finishing team. That's what we've been, and we didn't. They did, and we didn't." Although Kentucky's season ended in heartbreaking defeat, the off-season offered some positivity surrounding the team. The Wildcats had 4 players picked in the top 13 in the NBA draft, led by Karl Anthony Towns, who went first overall to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Wildcats also had players selected 6th, 12th, and 13th overall. The 4 Wildcats that were drafted in the top 13 tied an NBA draft lottery record. Overall, the 2014-15 NCAA men's basketball season is one that will be remembered.